Hey guys, do you like that Christmas morning feel of opening up a box, not knowing what's inside, feeling all sorts of excitement to find out what's inside? Well, let me tell you, you can feel that excitement every other month with a subscription to Farrier Box. Most farriers want to be competitive, whether it's attracting top-notch clients or winning contests. They take the tools and tricks of the trade used by today's top farriers and ship them to you so you have what you need to take your career to the next level. Go to farrierbox.com to start your subscription and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's box. I repeat, use code BRAINS for 25% off your first order. I know I like receiving packages, but I like it even more when it's a surprise, but also knowing I'm getting cool tools and tricks from Farrier Box. There's nothing out there like it in today's world of farriery, so you might as well go and level up with Farrier Box. Go to www.farrierbox.com and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's order. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Forging Brains podcast. My name is Riley Kirkpatrick, and we got my co-host Gavin Cooper. We got a fun one for you guys today. We got a guy that he doesn't follow within no man's rules, no man's boundaries or categories. He is like owned somewhat by the farrier trade, the blacksmith world, the ranching world, just all over the board. And there's probably a lot of you guys that are swinging his hammers out there. We got Ben Snure with us today. Well, thank you for joining us, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Sorry, I'm late.
No big deal. Gave me an opportunity to drink a couple more beers.
I thought I'd remember you telling me a while back that you're kind of a night owl anyways, right?
A little bit. I don't actually like to be a night owl, but that's when I tend to get most of my forge work in.
Yeah, that's what you remember you telling me.
Yeah, I would say you kind of are. There's times where it's like 10:30 or so at night at my house, and we're sitting there texting, and I started thinking about, I'm like, fuck, it's almost like it's after midnight for Ben right now.
I'll be in the shop, or I'll have just gotten back from the shop.
Jeez.
Is that are you a morning person then, or do you want to be one?
I've never really been much of a morning person. I operate well that way. I don't like to get up, but whenever I do get up, I operate good in the morning.
Yeah.
But it's just, the balance of trying to balance family and a ranch job and then forging. It's I got to fit the time in when I can, and those other two things take priority over making tools.
Yeah, being a blacksmith isn't your primary job, right?
Correct.
And what is your primary job then?
I run a cattle and exotic game ranch for a neurosurgeon south of Clarendon, Texas.
Dang.
And so, cool. Yeah.
And how, so what is there probably isn't a typical day for you.
There's never been a typical day.
But
I mean, we'll say this time of year, we're coming out of winter. Unfortunately, we're still tremendously dry, so I'm still having to feed cows every day, every other day, make sure the deer feeders are filled. This year, because we're dry, I've been having to feed more hay and protein to the exotic animals, which are not tremendously exotic. Like, we don't have a whole hell of a lot of African stuff. We have it other times, but making sure everything's got water, making sure everything's got feed, making sure power's running everywhere. It's just kind of making sure the fence is secure so what we do have doesn't escape.
And are you doing much of it on horses at all? Or are you doing it all on, side-by-sides and stuff then?
I try to do a lot of the cow work, horseback. Everything else is pretty well in a pickup or a Ranger.
Okay.
What's the variety of the exotic animals that you guys have then?
So right now we have got elk. We've got one lone Japanese cyca deer left, which I'd like to have more of. They're kind of a small. They're actually kin to an elk, and they can interbreed, but it'd be sort of like a Chihuahua breeding a Great Dane, like they're little bitty deer.
Yeah.
Really?
We've got scimitar horned oryx, aoudad sheep, whitetail mule deer, and that's it. But right now, like we're kind of mainly focusing on the elk.
So are whitetail not necessarily down there in Texas, or
No,
is it more
whitetail.
like
Like
a
we're
mule
in
tail?
whitetail country,
Or-
but because we're high fenced, it's a little more regulated, and then the mule deer are really hard to get for a high fence place.
Oh, okay.
And so I'd imagine once the ones we have are either run their course and die or get shot, we probably will not bring any more in because it is extremely cost prohibitive to bring them in.
Really? Where do you know where they come in from?
I mean, we're in mule deer country, but there for a long time in the hunting deal, whitetail was like the big thing, like these big gnarly racks, and everybody pay a ton of money for those. And that craze kind of died out, and people want these nice big mule deer.
Yeah.
But to get a mule deer buck, it's like $40,000 for a 3-year-old buck.
Holy cow!
I mean, it's crazy
That
expensive.
is
Where
ridiculous.
you can buy a bull elk for like a pretty damn good bull elk for like $8,000.
Really?
Jeez.
Yeah.
So is this just like
from other ranches in Texas?
Yep.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, just other ranches all over the place. And, it's not that hard to ship an animal. Just got to have somebody with the right trailer willing to do it.
Yeah.
and be able to capture it?
Oh, capture that. I've never got to do that, but that's the fun part.
Capture.
I watch my neighbors to the north are high fenced as well, and they occasionally have the helicopter come out, and they'll net them and dart them, and everybody swarms
No
up
shit.
on a 4-wheeler, and
So it's just like Africa then,
it is just
It's
I
like
guess
that
so.
old-
I
from
don't-
what
I
I'm
hadn't-
assuming.
that old John Wayne movie. Have you ever seen that old John Wayne movie where he's in Africa and he's
I
like
hadn't.
No.
he's roping giraffes and stuff off like the front of
No.
a Jeep?
I don't know. You'd
No.
have to have a hell of a big loop for that.
Oh, he does it, man.
I mean, it's John Wayne.
Yeah.
Why
John
can't he?
Wayne, man.
Yeah.
It was real. It was like they were definitely roping real animals in this movie. It was.
Oh yeah, there wasn't CGI in the days
No.
of John Wayne, other than like a little bit of green screen whenever like they're parachuting and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or
How-
they're riding in the back of the car and they just see that you have the
Exactly.
shitty
Just
scenery
bumping
going
along.
by. Yeah.
No, it's a good one. You have to watch it.
Let
I'll
me
have to
know what
look
it
it up.
is and I'll find it.
Same.
How many acres is that ranch you're on?
It's bigger than some. It's smaller than others.
Well, that puts it in perspective.
Yep.
Like, is it big enough that you could get around it checking the fence in a day?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Now, like if I was having to ride a horse, I could get it done, but
You
in a Ranger, I mean, hell, I could drive 40 miles an hour and look at everything.
True. True.
But like I got neighbors here that are like a section. My neighbor to the south's 300,000 acres. I mean, it's
So
I'm
is
in
that
between
larger
there.
or smaller?
That's big.
what's
stuff.
that?
Is that larger or smaller? The 300,000.
Oh yeah, no,
yours.
300,000's big.
Yeah.
That's a
Like
lot.
that is a big fucking ranch.
Yeah. So do all these exotic animals, I guess, would they naturally like cohabitate together, or do you got them all kind of fenced off to where they keep their own?
They kind of do all right. Like occasionally we've had some of the African stuff. Like the bull elk, whenever they're in rut, they'll get pretty feisty and come after a person or somebody in a Ranger or a horse.
Yeah.
We've had some eland, which is either the largest or the second largest antelope in the world. They're an African animal, and they'd come after people from a long ways off.
Really?
Like they were some mean bastards.
You
And then
you had a little tangle with the bull, didn't you, in the Ranger?
Yeah, one of those bull elk just flat out ran me off the road, and it was either I'm
What?
gonna hit him and probably have to pay for him, or I'm gonna go off the road.
And maybe pay for the Ranger.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So,
Shit.
but And then let's see, I had a horse gored by I had a horse gored by an elk, and I had a good horse gouged through the ribs by one of those eland one time, and was like, I don't know, a half inch from his heart. Like I took her to the vet, and he was like, stick your finger in here, and you could feel her heart beating.
Wow. Did the horse survive?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
nice.
amazing
That's
what
good.
horses can live through.
Yeah, but it's also amazing what will kill them.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Like-
That is a damn good point.
Like sometimes you're like, man, you died over that. Like it really wasn't
Yeah.
that big of a deal.
Boy, and I got some horses around here that I hate them, and they just won't ever die.
Those are the ones that
I'm
live
sure
forever.
y'all shoot some of those horses, or
Oh,
probably
yeah.
you fired those people.
No, man, because sometimes they're just easy. They don't grow very much foot, so like they're fast
Yeah.
to trim, and they don't really give you much shit usually. But you're always thinking, you're like, today could be the day that I'm gonna show up and that fucker's dead.
No,
Like,
all
what
the
do I
good
do?
horses never keep as good as the ones that don't ever get ridden.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably
It is kind of
it.
surprising though. Like, it almost seems like every year that I do this, I have like more and more horses die each year just from like natural causes or something
Yeah.
like colic, or I just had one die 2 weeks ago that I've been shooting for over a year. And it's the not third one this year, it'd be the second one this year, and we're already in April. It's weird.
And there's just no telling like what'll kill them. Like a change in the atmosphere, and then they colic, and then that's it.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Changing shavings almost,
Yep.
something like that. That's what they'll think, but it's a weird deal.
Yeah, it is.
So did you grew up on a ranch then?
I grew up in Amarillo, outside of Amarillo, Texas, where Wellshot is, and then I spent kind of summers at our family's ranch in Arizona, and then I went to a little small ag school. Like my graduating class of 8th grade was like 28 kids, and so
Oh, yeah,
I've
that's
just kind
cool.
of always been around it, and then yeah.
Is this something like at that age? Is that like what your goal was to go do? Was just go cowboy afterwards?
No, I rebelled against my whole upbringing. I had my long-haired hippie phase, pot smoking, hemp short Birkenstock wearing.
Really? Like during the college years?
Oh, this was before college. Like I was not a college boy.
Yeah.
No. So this was in high school, and I was a really good mountain biker, and I ended up racing a lot of downhill mountain bikes, which you wouldn't think
Like
of a
Really?
guy from
Especially in
here.
Texas.
But we had the Paladar Canyon we built
Okay.
some nice trails down there that we had to hike up. But I did that, and then
no, like because if somebody would say like, yeah, Ben Snure mountain biking, I would picture you now with your cowboy boots, your nice hat, like your clean clothes on this like downhill bike. Just,
No.
it would be-
no, I went renegade there for a while.
Yeah, I'm curious what you were like, long hair,
I would love to see a picture of these times.
I've probably got a picture around. So actually, I know I've got some pictures around with long hair, but it was like down nip level.
Gavin
Yeah,
level.
ain't no shame.
Gavin
Yeah.
Ain't no shame.
level.
Yeah,
What did you want to be at that time?
I didn't ever really have a plan for life. I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I've had a variety of different jobs, and some of them I was better at than others. Like I was a terrible waiter.
Waiter?
Waiter, like waiting tables at a restaurant. That lasted like a week.
God, that would be miserable.
Oh, I just wasn't cut out for it. I was a bank teller for like 4 days.
Really?
Yeah, you're young and you need a
Oh,
job,
man.
and
I
You didn't
washed-
try to-
I washed dishes at an Olive Garden for like 2
yeah.
weeks.
I mean, you just do things so you can get money, so you can buy beer and maybe try to get some ass later.
That 4 days really must have got a lot.
Oh, I was a pretty good carpenter I did that for a number of years, and then like right out of high school, I got a job being a trim carpenter for this company that was doing these really high-end houses. And I kind of like that, and then I just got burnt out on it, and I had a girlfriend, we broke up, and I just needed a flat-out change, and so I was like, all right, that's it, I'm moving to the ranch in Arizona, and that's kind of where I really just started to
Change.
Yeah, and I guess I was maybe 21 or so then.
When you moved there.
Yep.
And did you move there and you were gonna work on the farm or on the ranch?
I worked on the ranch. I did that for a while, and then my uncle was not the ideal guy to work for. And I got another job with a guy named Pecos Shannon in Lordsburg, New Mexico. And I was there, I think, maybe a year. And it was, I don't know, maybe some of the most depressing, hardest times of my life. But I learned more about working cows, horses, and everything there than I did.
Now,
did it require discipline?
My entire life before.
Okay, I want to jump back a couple licks here. That
All right.
Growing up because you and your dad are still pretty close, right?
Oh yeah, we're real good friends.
Was he pretty easy on you growing up? Like you like doing things with him?
Yeah. I mean, we did and have always had a really good relationship. He kind of, whenever I was younger and couldn't really even drive, like he'd take me to mountain bike races and was always supportive of whatever I did. And I know I just had to have frustrated the hell out of him because I had no path chosen.
Well, even on that, like, it's not like he was really much of a mountain biker and long-haired guy.
No,
right?
he mountain biked.
Really?
He and I got into mountain biking together whenever I was maybe in like 5th or 6th grade.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of got onto this health kick. He was kind of an overweight dude, and he decided he was going to lose weight, and we started mountain biking. And, eating chicken or grilled salmon for every fucking meal. So I still don't really like either one of those. And so
I can
we
get
did
along with
that,
the
and that was a
chicken,
bonding
not the
thing.
salmon.
And he'd haul me around to mountain bike races. I mean, he's always been kind of my number one fan.
And now,
Well, that's cool.
was it like he's your dad's brother, or your uncle is your dad's brother that you went to work
Yeah,
with?
he's my dad's brother. Yeah. Uncle Rick was my dad's brother.
Was your Uncle Rick a prick when you were a kid?
He just kind of didn't give a shit about my sister and I. And it wasn't necessarily that it was a prick, but he just didn't really care. Like, we were just kind of
Just there.
furniture. Yeah.
So, like, did that change when you went to go work for him?
Yeah, because then I was an adult. He could tell me what he thought of me. Repeatedly. Often. Every day. You're the dumbest son of a bitch I have ever seen in my life.
So why did you keep working for him and not get fed up about
I was
it?
gonna say, like,
what's that?
Because I've heard some stories about your uncle Rick before, of him like pissing in your general direction and shit.
No. It's not pissing in your general direction. So,
these are like.
I haven't had to tell this in a while.
Rick was a fucking asshole.
Imagine you're standing. Oh no, Rick was a complete fucking asshole, and he was just pretty well nuts too. And he was just eat up with flying helicopters, and he didn't really want to do anything else. And he was, he had his moments of being all right. If anybody else talked shit on me, like, it would come down to a fight. But Rick was never going to be nice to me. But the pissing deal, like, it was this, you'd be standing there talking to him, just like anybody would do, kind of face to face, and he'd just whip out his dick and start pissing while he's talking to you.
Oh, no.
Another day, we were in the Brandon pen, and he'd gathered up all the cows in the helicopter. We're there in the Brandon pen, and Rick drops down in his helicopter. He brought us lunch from Sonic because, if you have a helicopter, you can fly. Instead of the 2-hour drive to town, you can go get Sonic and bring it back real quick in a helicopter.
Did the Sonic just have like a empty fucking lot next to it that he landed this helicopter in?
No, at the airport there, they had a little, in Douglas, Arizona, at the airport, they had a little, like, rental car you could get. So if you flew in, they had a car you could borrow to run in town to get something and come back. So he drops down in his helicopter, and we're in the Brandon pen, and he hadn't even gotten, like, the sonic out of the helicopter yet, but he doesn't like how we're working the cows, even though, you know, we've got, like, 200 calves to work, and we're, like, 175 into them already.
Oh, shit.
But he just starts yelling he gets out of the helicopter, and he starts yelling at us, and the urge to shit comes over him. And so he drops the tailgate of somebody's pickup and hangs onto the tailgate and is just screaming at us and shitting at the same time.
What the fuck? The balls on that guy. God damn.
No toilet paper either.
That's something.
It's something. It was something. Like, it was a learning experience. Like, you learn a lot about treating how to treat people whenever you're treated like that.
What do you do? Like, how do you respond to someone just shitting while they're talking to you?
Well, luckily, his youngest boy, Clay, my cousin Clay, was kind of running the Brandon crew, and he's just like, fuck off, Rick. We're doing what we're doing. We're almost done. We've done it the same way that we've done my entire life. We're not quitting now.
Oh, my gosh.
But, you know.
But on top of that, like, how do you go forward from there? Like, I don't know. Like,
it wasn't just a hell of a lot longer after that I quit.
You got to get out of it.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Well, he had to have, like, some moments of, like, you were really learning from him. Right? Like,
no, Rick, I never learned anything from Rick. Like,
Okay.
I went to Rick's house in the morning. I got my marching orders for the day, and then there was 3 Mexicans. There was Jesus, Fausto, and Fidel that I worked with, and none of them spoke English, and I don't speak Spanish. And so I had to go get my orders from Rick in the morning, find out what to do. And he'd already called them, but, you know, they couldn't translate it, and so I worked with them, and I learned a lot from them, and they're the guys that taught me how to shoe a horse real poorly. Really bad job. Like, I learned a really bad job of shoeing.
Did you know that it was a bad job at the time, or do you know that now after what you've seen?
I sort of suspected it was not very good, but it was, you know, it was a necessity job. Like, we weren't trying to do anything pretty. We were just trying to keep nails, you know, iron on a horse.
Yeah. You don't want to fall off.
Like, down in that part of the world, it's all that Malapai volcanic rock, and you have got to have shoes on a horse all the damn time.
Were you running, like, toe and heels on them?
Was I what?
Were you running, like, toe and heel shoes on them? With the, like, little toe bar and the heel cocks on the back end?
No. I mean, there was enough dirt. Like, we weren't on, it wasn't like we were riding on cobbles every day.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, a lot of it was, there's just really hard rocky, within the dirt, there's a lot of hard rocky, a lot of rocks that are that volcanic rock, and then a lot of just outcrops and mountains and stuff that are that you're having to prowl around on to gather cows. It wasn't until I moved to Lordsburg after I quit working for Rick that I started kind of learn a little bit more about shoeing from Pecos. And he taught, like, he actually tried to work with me and teach me how to shoe a horse, which I kind of feel like I could have been an all right horse shoer, but I just never liked it enough.
What do you think you didn't like about it?
I don't know. I'd rather be riding a horse than be underneath it.
Yeah.
Kind of was thinking maybe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
rather be chousing cows around than be nailing iron on. And, you know, once again, like, if I knew now what I knew then and had some, like, real instruction other than just cowboys, I might feel differently about it. Because, like, you know, I didn't have a stall jack or a hoof stand. I didn't know how to use any of that whenever I did get it, so I didn't really even use it.
Yeah.
It was just basically, you know, straight-legged with the hoof between you and bent straight over.
Oh, yeah.
Basically making you miserable at the time because you didn't necessarily able to do multiple runs of it, so you're just struggling through it. And you're like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, so, like, I you know, later on I got to where I'd do a couple, 3-4 horses once a month, but you aren't in that condition, like that physical condition to do it all the time unless you're doing it all the time, because that is it's a weird fitness condition to be able to shoe a horse.
I always think back to that, like if I take a week off or something, like vacation or whatever, and you go back to work the first day or whatever, your legs are kind of like shaking, and you're like,
yeah,
it brings you back to like the first week of shoeing school.
And I was like that every single time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would not be enjoyable at all.
No. And so Pecos, like the one thing, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, especially you got like hard ass feet, I bet. Dull tools.
Oh, hell. Yeah.
Not enjoyable.
No, and like the only tools we had like were some old, 1960s worn out diamond nippers.
Yeah.
The reins touched.
Yeah.
No.
Nothing.
Probably
nothing
a couple
was
chips
ideal.
out of them.
Like I
been
finally
the same rasp all year.
Yep. Well, yeah, the rasps. That was one thing. Like I could afford to buy some rasps, so I could do that. But like I finally saved up some money and I bought myself a set of GE nippers, and that was kind of a game changer. Having like a nice new tuned up set of nippers, and I didn't realize that like your reins weren't gonna have to squeeze them all the way together and kind of pry them back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Wait, were you using pull-offs before?
It was pretty rough. But then one thing I'll never forget about that dude Pecos, whenever he was like, "Don't ever trim the heel." And I was like, okay.
Here we go.
And, this is this guy that had taught me a hell of a lot, and he was teaching me how to shoe horses. He's like, don't ever trim the heel. If you do, then you'll start overreaching, because the foot's at the wrong angle. That's going to make them break over quicker, all that. And it's just one of the things I learned, like, that's so damn wrong.
Such a cowboy thing, though.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to me that I was like, that's probably a dude that spent a ton of time on a horse.
He's one of the best horsemen and best ropers I've ever met in my life.
And so he's a guy
he
that
was
understands the horse. But at the same time, obviously doesn't fucking understand the horse.
Well, but he understood what worked for him. And, like, he had... Yeah. I mean, you're not really... If you do that, your horse may not be at, like, peak level, but it isn't going to get crippled.
No. But it's always amazing that it just, like... It can even hold up to it. That the heel stays there. Like, it all... Like... It's every time I see one of those in dry weather, you're like, wow, that's it's standing up. That's impressive.
Exactly. Like the hoof is so hard, like it's not going to compress.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're like, here, that thing would be rolled underneath of that whole entire foot.
Oh, I can't imagine being
just
where y'all are at. Just how nice it'd be. Like, you can use like actual fingernail trimmers on the hooves up there.
Oh yeah,
I
think I'm in like 13 years of shoeing horses, and I still have my hoof knife from horseshoeing school. Like that's incredible. I don't use it all the time, but I still got it. I use it sometimes. Like,
I gotta say, since I just moved, I just threw mine away.
Yeah, you're like, fuck, I've just had it too long.
It literally has been in the same drawer since shoeing school. I'm like, this thing's just dirty and rusty. Like, what the fuck am I carrying it around for?
See, that's something I'd have hung on to. Just like it goes on like the shelf of, knife number one.
I should have.
I'm a sentimental guy. I like to hang on to those first.
That's how I felt, but I was always getting pressured. Like, why are you hanging on to this? And I had to like, women, I tell you.
I can understand that.
Why are you hanging on to this? You don't need it. You don't see it. You don't use it.
It's because they watch all those shows where that's like that tell them that's what they got to do, and so then they enforce it on everybody else in their life.
My wife will watch that hoarder show every so often, and instead of like making it want her that show making her want to clean, makes her feel good about what we have in the house. Like, we aren't actually hoarding a whole bunch of just trash. Yeah. And so she kind of lets some of my shit slide after stuff like that.
That's a good way of looking at it. Right there.
Yeah.
We, actually, I showed Ashley's first episode of Hoarders this last weekend, and her and my mom were watching it with us, and they were getting pissed. They were like, what the fuck is wrong with people? And, like, they couldn't finish the episode. They're like, this is ridiculous. How do people live like this? And gross. I was just like, it's just crazy to see houses like that and makes me feel better about the stuff I got.
Hell yeah.
You know? But they were getting mad. They're
And
like,
it's not
wow.
like they're hoarding good shit. They're hoarding trash.
Bad.
Oh, that's the grossest part. It is
Oh.
just complete trash, man. Like, it is. And, like, you'll see cars of that shit around here, and, like, it's so humid around here, everything molds like a motherfucker. And so, like, it is just moldy. The whole
you get the
inside of the
mice
car.
and rats.
You gotta assume those people's houses are moldy like that if
Oh,
they're
for
in your
sure.
part of the world.
Oh, big
Dude,
time.
They are.
Big time.
They,
I could never live in y'all's part of the world. Like
I mean,
that
you can get mold in
like,
a good house around here.
Well, not even mold, just rust. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot use my anvil for a month and the face is still clean.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Like,
Mine will sit overnight and be rusted.
Oh, no, I can't stand rust.
oh man, it's just a part of life here. Yeah, it is. You just so learn how to deal with it, but it is pretty shitty sometimes. That's like all my horseshoeing tools are just like a straight patina.
Oh, I've
They
seen
are
your
brown
I've
as
seen
could
your
be.
videos, and some of them are not patina. That's a crust.
It is. Oh, it is
Crust
deep.
of rust.
It is deep.
It almost
Yeah.
looks cool, in my opinion. Like, I like it, to be honest.
I guess if everything's kind of like that, it looks sort of right. It all blends in,
It bothers me, but it's just a thing that's like, what the fuck am I gonna do about it? Like, I could polish everything I own, and I'll just have to polish it again in 2 days. Like,
yeah.
there's really
When I
not
first
much you
moved
can
back
do.
up here, from Texas, like, I got into that habit of, like, starting to, like, polish the rust off of it because I was used to everything not rusted, and then, like, it would just keep doing it. I was doing it every week, and I was like, this is a waste of time.
Now, where
No
were you
point
at
in
in
it.
Texas?
Just outside of, like, Weatherford area, Springtown.
Boy,
Yeah.
that is damn sure horse country there. I bet you were busy as hell.
Busy with a lot of things, I guess. Just the thing I missed the most was the horseshoeing community there, being able to get together with Robert and Paul,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
But that's what kept me busy.
So you worked
Being in the shop.
with your second asshole of your life. How long were you with that guy?
And he wasn't exactly an asshole. Actually, he wasn't an asshole. He's not exactly on my favorite list, but he wasn't necessarily a bad guy. But I also learned, like I said, I don't know, a lifetime's worth of cowboy knowledge in like a year from him.
Like quite a
We
bit,
were-
quite
we
a bit
were
of the
on a
stuff
horse.
that you're using today.
Yeah. Yep. And then I was there for like a year with him, and then I ended up going and working for a vet that owned a feedlot south of Wilcox, Arizona, which this is all kind of in like the southeast corner of Arizona, southwest corner of New Mexico, like all very like pretty within an hour and a half drive, 2 hour drive. But I was working for that vet, and I learned a lot about cows, doctoring cows, riding pins, finding sick ones, all that shit from him. And kind of some oddball shit, like he was this pretty well-respected vet, and he's a guy that originally started bringing in spaying heifers to bring them in from Mexico, which, you can't bring... animals coming across the state lines have got to be sterile.
Okay.
Or into the states from Mexico have got to be sterile. So he developed a process to rapidly spay heifers to bring them over.
And what was the benefit
Like
of
we did
bringing them? Were they cheaper?
Just to bring in the Mexican ones over.
Yeah, to buy those like
Yeah,
those
oh yeah.
heifers?
Yeah, you could buy them cheap as hell over there.
And then
it'd
they
be like,
basically just going to be used for beef at that point.
$150 for a heifer, and you got to spend $15 to spayers. So you got, $130 heifer to bring over here.
Compared to
So basically, you're just
how
going to be...
much would that heifer cost if you were just going to buy it from another ranch? in
$500.
Arizona? Oh, okay.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I mean it was, and there's just there's a big supply down there, and they didn't really have anything to do with them. So you could bring them over
I
here,
see.
run them through the feedlot, fatten them up, and then they're turning into like good beef instead of just kind of grass fed. pretty
was gonna-
sorry meat.
Were they hardier? Like were they a little bit easier to take care of?
Yes. I mean, yes and no. It's kind of like all those animals. I mean, you have some good ones, you have some bad ones. There was damn
Yeah.
sure some cows we had that I wish wouldn't have been spayed, and I'd
Be
like
able
to
to
have
breed
bought
'em.
them and just turned them into mama cows. And then other ones like I can't wait for you to die. I'm going to relish eating you.
Do you remember
shit.
how he was spaying them so quickly?
Yeah, and so and this is kind of the weird deal, and because he would go in through the side, so he'd run him in, and I helped him with this, and that was kind of the neat thing about him. I kind of got to be like his right hand man and like sort of vet assistant, going around to a bunch of ranches and doing a wide variety of different things.
Yeah.
But he'd shave them, he'd cut a little slit in, and then he'd just force his hand through the muscle and pull out the ovaries. And
So he's he's going through like the flank?
Yeah, it'd be like, exactly.
Like
it'd be
right
like
in front of the
15
hip.
seconds.
Jeez.
Yep. And it'd be like
Wow.
15 seconds and he's done.
And he
And
just
it
did
You even got to stitch 'em up?
Before he
Purely-
figured this out, it was like a 20-minute process.
Yeah, like he's doing it purely by feel.
Purely by feel and quite a bit by force, because like I said, he wasn't like nicely cutting his way through the muscle, but basically forcing his hands his one hand through the strand of the muscles. And so
Yeah.
Golly.
I mean, and it worked well. And I think he said he did something like 150,000 head or something like that.
And he was doing all these by himself.
He would take me and I'd do the prep work. I'd shave them. I'd swab them with alcohol, get them ready to do all that. He'd run it through there, and then if everything was kind of going good, we'd have another guy stapling them together on the other side, or I would run over.
That
and
was
do
my
that.
next question. Like, do they even get stapled or sewn
Yeah,
up
yeah,
afterwards?
they'd get stapled.
Yeah, that is.
That's nuts.
But like we did cosmetic surgery on like show steers, and it got to where he just turned that
Really?
over to me. People would come to the feedlot, and this $high show steer that they'd bought, and started growing horns, and they're like, okay, we can't have horns, and so he taught me how to like shave the skull cap down from those horns and make it look like they'd never had horns.
No way.
I don't know. Oh yeah.
Like,
I
so
don't
you
know
would
how
just
many
make like a cross incision on the top of their skull?
No, it wouldn't be like a cross incision. So you'd kind of come down and then cut around the base of the horn and then down a little bit lower, fold it back, saw it off, and then you get the angle grinder and grind it off with like one of the. Have you seen the like those cups that are for wood?
Yep. Yeah. Power
And you use
carver.
those and you kind of shave it to where you kind of like you pull the skin back up and get it to where it looked right. Stitch them back up. Give them
Damn.
a shit ton of penicillin.
Dude, yeah, like
God damn.
you're getting to an area there that's not a lot of room there.
I never killed one.
You never saw any brains, though, huh?
No. The way their hair, especially, there was more room, I think, than you'd think there would be. Like, the way that the skull is, and I think the way their head grows with horns is, like, their brain cavity may be a little bit different than one that wasn't going to have horns.
Huh.
But, I don't know, I probably took out 100 cancer eyes
Whole eye.
on Hereford cows. And that, the main tool with that was a grapefruit spoon with a slot cut in it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple. Simple.
It did the trick. So I
You would just
learned a lot
pop it.
from
You
him
would just
as well.
pop it out.
You kind of cut around it and then you pop it out. So the grapefruit spoon, you'd have the grapefruit spoon, you'd have those teeth on there, and you'd kind of sharpen it up. But then there would be a slot cut in the middle of it
For the nerve.
for the nerves and stuff. So you'd slide that back in there, kind of, and pull it out a little bit, and then get your hemostats and crimp it off really, really good. Cut it off and sew everything back up.
Cow stuff is a different world.
It is.
It really
It is. But I did a lot of horse stuff too. Like I helped him out with a whole lot of pretty damn hellacious injuries on horses.
Really?
So this guy was just into whatever.
He would not work on a dog or a cat or a pig.
Oh,
It
so
was
just
all
large animal.
large animal. That's
I can't
it.
blame him. I don't want to be even fucking near a pig.
No, but he was also like
Pigs are
he was
probably-
also like 5'6". I mean, it would have made more sense for him to be a small animal vet.
Yeah.
Maybe. So at this point, were you mostly just hanging out with him?
Yeah, I was working full time, 7 days a week at the feedlot, helping him, and he'd call, if I was riding pins or on the doctor and crew, whatever. It was a small feedlot, so a lot of guys helped out. Like I'd ride pins, and then I'd also help on the doctor and crew. And then if he needed to go somewhere or somebody was bringing in like an unusual something or other that he needed help with, he'd holler at me, and I'd go ride with him or help him there.
What do you think was the gnarliest injury that you guys had to deal with?
On a horse?
Sure.
Anything. Just weird shit.
Yeah, horse, cow.
The worst ones were like cows that aborted but didn't actually abort, and so they'd have like a rotting fetus in them. And so you'd have to cut it out from the side, and like 5 gallons of pus would come out in a rotten calf, and it was horrid. I did not like
Just
helping
the
with that.
Smell of it, the looks of it, everything.
Yeah, just all of it. Oh, it was horrible. Horrible.
I've seen videos where like there'll be something growing on the side of a cow or whatever, and they pop it in, and it's just like pus, gallons of it. It seems like or whatever. But
yeah, and this was I'd say like that was a good day. Like those cows that have a calf die in them was by far the worst.
Oh,
Goodness.
Just gnarliest, grossest, whatever.
It's amazing though.
And then I'll say on like horses, some of the worst that I saw on horses were horses that got tangled up in wire either around their hoof or their legs. And the crazy thing is it wasn't ever barbed wire that was the worst. It was smooth wire. Because I think, they'll keep pulling on it and just constrict the blood all the way off or something. And, barbed wire, they'll pull on it and they'll start getting cut. And a lot of the time they'll kind of stop yanking. And the smooth wire, they won't do that.
Man, that's one of the things I advocate so much for with my client is that they'll have a pile of shit horse, it's kind of pulling and yanking on you just because he doesn't like to be restricted. That's about
yeah.
A lot of times that's what it bears down to in my mind. It's like this fucker just doesn't like to be told what to do and be confined and restricted. And it's like the best thing you could do for him is hobble him a bunch, tie his head around to his tail, like make him do some things that he can chill out once he's all pulled tied up. It's like that's what's going to save him the day when he gets all tangled in the fence or into some roofing tent or something. And then he's like, all right, I'm in a bind. I need to just chill out compared to just going nuts. They rip everything from freaking hawk down, just peel it back like a freaking
funny story
banana.
though. Remember when we were having the team practice at Jesse's this last year or whatever, and have that horse hobbled up in the stall?
We did with this stupid little gypsy horse. It was being an idiot. And so Jesse hobbles it and throws it in the stall, and he's just got like these stalls with like a little man gate, like the little
little green one.
Yeah, they're like 3.5 feet tall or so. We go inside and eat lunch and everything. We come back out to have a go, and this fucker is sitting high centered on that little man gate.
Just straddling it.
Just straddling the damn thing. Calm as could be at that point, though. It was good at that point.
I couldn't
that's
believe
one
it.
of the more frustrating things. I had one of my horses really good, and I could hobble him, and he would stand there all day. And then one day he learned he could move, and it just soured him on being hobbled. And so I'm over at my buddy Jack's place getting ready to work cows, and we're traveling out. We got to Jack's at like 4:30 in the morning, ate breakfast, drank coffee. We're riding out to this pasture. I get dropped off on the line, to go gather these cows, and I'm like, I got to shit. So I get off, I hobble my horse, and he just loses his shit. And it's like he doesn't leave until I have my pants all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
So I'm having to struggle as fast as I can to grab a rein with everything all the way down. And so I get it back and I'm like, all right, I am tying you up to this tree real fucking close. And so I tie him up to the tree. I try to shit. As soon as I squat, he breaks my fucking rein off. And so then I'm trying to grab him again and I never got to shit. After
Great.
that, it was, I had to, fix my head stall. I had to, it was just not a fun situation. And I laid into that fucker. I tried to hematoma
A
rib.
shitty situation.
Yeah, it was a shitty situation.
It could have been like, he could have waited till you were mid shit to take off. Like, that would have been even worse.
And he would have been better, like, if he'd have had a little bit of forethought.
Yeah,
He would have been gone.
it's like, you would have been gone, buddy. Oh, that's the worst. Because they do, like,
man,
once they learn that they can move in them too, like, especially if you're just hobbling the front end, like, if they learn they can, like, leap and get to cantering,
They can get pretty damn
they
quick
can
at that.
get to cantering pretty damn quick. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, hell, I guess I need to go back with him and just try to start sidelining him as well as doing the front feet. But I've got very little trust for him at this moment.
I would be too.
take a shit before you leave. But then you got that horse.
Yeah,
with
damn
you.
right. Damn right.
Not
Damn
trusting him at all. How long did you go from working for the vet to where the deal you're at now?
Yep. I came in town for a wedding and I got offered this job and I've been here, I think it'll be 16 years in August.
Really? You never met the guy
That's a good
before
bit.
that you're working for?
No, I'd met him before. He is the father-in-law of my sister. And so I'd met him a little bit and had a really, really bad relationship with my brother-in-law's family and my brother-in-law whenever I was offered this job. And I don't even know why. I was invited to their youngest son's wedding. I don't even understand why, because they hated me and I hated them.
Why?
And we showed up and I met, that's...
But you still went to the wedding.
That's another
That's
story.
another story. That's an off-air story.
Okay.
Okay.
So I hated these people and they hated me, and for some reason Doc Paulus, I think he was drunk, was like, hey, I got this ranch and I got this old guy I don't like. Well, you want to come run it for me? And I was like, I don't think this is a real good idea. And everybody else was like, this is a really bad idea. And I took it anyways, and I've been here 16 years.
That's pretty good. He probably knew you were fairly handy though.
I think so, and I think he'd also kind of realized I had made some pretty significant life changes between when they had met me before and when I'd turned back up for this wedding.
You showed
Because that'd been 4 or 5 years.
You had your hair cut, no longer wearing tie-dye.
Oh, they didn't know me. I kind of, yeah, it was different, but I don't know. He's kind of an idea guy, and sometimes his ideas are good, and sometimes they're not, and sometimes you just got to try them out to see what's going to happen. And this one seemed to work out for both of us.
So
You
he
guys
Now he had
had
another
any,
idea. What's that?
Oh, keep
You
going.
guys haven't had any like altercations throughout the years, or it's all been smooth
I
sailing?
saw him mad at me one time, and I'd never seen him mad before, and I started laughing. And that made it matter for a little bit, and then he started laughing. And that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
Now his wife, on the other hand, she's been mad at me a bunch of times, and there's no hiding when she's mad.
Oh.
Yeah, she's to this day has given me, even with Uncle Rick, has given me the most thorough ass chewing I've ever had.
Like
Like,
fear
really?
for your job, ass chewing?
No, I wasn't working here then. This was back when everybody hated me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
But Wayne, like I said, he's an idea guy. There was a time that he wanted to turn the ranch into a winery.
Really?
And Yeah, it's just a really, really bad idea.
Yeah.
Took a school on opening a winery and everything. Like, he was committed to it.
It
And
seems like the wrong state.
it's the wrong everything.
Yeah, like that's
It's the wrong state. It's the wrong weather. It's the wrong soil. It's the wrong.
like I live in
everything.
wine country. Our countries
Yeah,
are
we got a lot of
different.
wineries up here.
Pretty fucking drastic difference than Clarendon, Texas.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
Yeah.
was it when you went to that ranch? Was it what it is right now, pretty much?
It was a more rundown version of it.
Really?
You know, I spent a lot of years just doing a lot of fixing, a lot of, running different water lines. Used to, like, once a week I'd have a water line break. I'd have a well go out, which the wells, that just happens anyways. But, I'd have pretty serious things that I was fixing all the time, redoing gates, redoing pins.
And he had the exotic animals before you started?
Yeah, so they've had this place for, I think, a little over 40 years now.
Wow.
And have
wow.
pretty well, they kind of pieced it together. And as they'd buy 600 acres here, 1,000 acres there. And as they did that, they just kind of high fence it in. And so I've actually weirdly got a lot of interior high fences, which I don't actually like. But, so they've started bringing in animals pretty much immediately, and so they've had them a long time. But yeah, it's
because obviously it's not his main income is this ranch. Like this is a little bit more.
No,
like, he would like
we
the ranch to pay for itself.
I don't know if they really. I don't fully understand how it is whenever you're in that tax bracket. If you want it to make an income, or if you don't want it to make an income.
Yeah.
For taxes. I mean, it's a tax write-off, and I don't know whether it, like I said, if it's better to make money or not. I try to make it money. Like, if I can screw them on their taxes, I have done something right.
So is this like a exotic animal thing? Is it only just like a Texas thing, or are we even allowed to have that up here, Riley? Like, I don't.
Oh no,
I've never heard of anything like that up here.
We can't have fenced elk or deer. Or
that's what I kind of thought.
Really anything like that. We could have buffaloes and shit like that. But like
I would bet that you could have more than you think you could. But it goes back into like the whitetail and the mule deer. Is those are regulated because they're native animals to this area, like currently, and so you can't fence them in or fence. Like you can't. They're regulated whether you can bring them in. And the funny thing is elk are actually native to this area. Like, they're not mountain West Coast animals.
No,
they are
prairies.
plains animals.
Yeah.
Really?
And so, but I bet if you, some person up there, I bet there's game ranches up there. Might be different.
We
but
don't,
it does
we
have to
don't
be
just
private
because
land.
we're so worried about CW, especially now it's CWD. They just don't. We don't have it right now because we don't, and that's like
what's CWD?
Chronic wasting
disease.
Yeah, and it gets passed mostly through farm game, like through high fence game stuff like that, and we're still held fast on that whole entire deal. So they're
like, will it cross over to livestock?
No, it's not crossing over to livestock. I don't believe. And it doesn't.
But just across.
There's a version of it in cows.
Yeah.
It's mad cow disease.
Yep, that's exactly It is, and like mad cow disease still like it will like I think there's a couple cases where mad cow crossed into humans, like humans were getting sick from it.
Yeah.
But chronic wasting disease doesn't have any cases yet where a human's gotten sick from consuming it.
Oh, okay.
But
and occasionally you'll see those videos of like a moose or a deer out in the field just running in circles.
Yep.
And the only thing you can do is shoot it and send it. You don't harvest the meat or anything, but you take it to the state.
Have it tested.
Yeah, I got a buddy in Wisconsin that he has like a big piece of land that has a bunch of deer on it, and man, he'll put videos on of like just a buck laying on the ground.
Yeah, I've got friends that do that.
You can just walk right up to the dang thing because it's so sick and it's just seizing on the ground and stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah, it hits them pretty hard.
I hadn't seen the videos like that. It's mainly just the ones like running in circles and just they'll run themselves to death doing that, and that's maybe what those ones that your buddy's seen is. They're kind of catching the aftermath of that.
The weird thing we got here is like we had that avian influenza, and the fucking birds were doing that, where they were running circles and just spinning circles and dying. And then our elk have hoof rot. It looks like they're founder. Like, and these fuckers are
really?
they got elf sheeps on, and they say it's mostly from the herbicides. They think for their spraying in the trees and the timber.
No shit.
Yep, something in that.
I did not know that either.
I didn't know that.
Random Snapple fact for the day right there. So you got moved into this place, and how I feel like there's so much more to the Bend than we're almost like an hour in. This is good, but where hopefully you don't got anywhere to be, Ben.
Nope.
When did you start forging then?
I actually attempted to start forging. Shit, maybe like 13 or 14 years ago. I'd been here a couple of years, and I kind of gotten to where I had enough under control that I could take a little bit of time off. And I thought, I'm going to pick up a hobby. You know, I didn't have the internet. I didn't have a smartphone or anything. But I'm going to try to, round me up an anvil. I'm going to build me a forge. And I wanted to make bits and spurs. And I'd watch the Billy Clapper video of making one-piece spurs. And I was like, This is what I'm going to do.
That's what got you interested in it.
It is. And, well, it was that. And then another one that I'd seen was a guy that had some hoof rasp oxbow stirrups. But they weren't just like flat bent stirrups. Yep. They were rounded into a snake and had a snake head forged on one side. And then the tang was rattles.
No
way. And
I
always really, and I have messed with that more than maybe anything in forging. I'll come back to that. So anyways, I went out to wellshot.com before it was Wellshot. It was just ranchers out there north of Amarillo, and I met John, and that's
what John said, yeah.
They had this shitty anvil out there that they'd had for years, and it was a 125-pound Peter Wright that was just absolutely beat to shit. It was $150, and I was like, I will take it. I went home, built me a little forge, and I couldn't do anything. My blower was not enough. I had hell getting my coal started.
But you had all these ideas, though. You were like, this is going to go
I had
so
all
good.
these, like, this is going to be, I can do all of this shit. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even start my forge. Like, there was days I couldn't get it started. I was just like, fuck it.
Because you were using it.
And like you said.
You didn't have a propane forge. You had a coal forge.
I had a coal forge that I built. And, the fire pot was like 7 inches deep. And I had a tiny little blower. Like, everything was just wrong.
Yeah.
And so I tried to do stuff, and, the first thing I got a couple of books, and it's like, all right, you need tongs, so I'm going to try to build tongs. And I couldn't do that at all. And so I tried it for like 6 months, and I'm just like, screw it. I'm done. I'm over this. I can't do it.
Is this like...
I can't. It's not that I can't do it. It just can't be done.
It's impossible. This is impossible.
Nobody's ever doing it.
But
yeah.
It's pretty funny that like you bought the bare minimum. You were like, well, I can't probably make an anvil, but I can make everything else. This is no big deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Have you kind of always had that? Like, did you grow up with that? Of like, you guys just made whatever you need if you're going to try something?
A little bit. Yes and no. It's like if you're going to try to get into something, like, you're going to make your own stuff to try to get into it. And then if you, like, really, you excel or you actually get good at it, then you can start spending some money and do some, like, really do this.
But, man, I think
and,
there's
like,
a
buy
bunch
some
of
serious
fuckers,
shit.
though. They, like, a bunch of these people buy all this stuff before they ever even start. They're like, well, I got to have all
Man,
these
I wish I
before...
could have bought all this shit before I ever even started.
Yeah.
I'd have been doing this for 10 years longer. But
that burns
makes you who you are.
And like I said, there wasn't, like, I didn't have internet. I hell, I had a VHS player. And no, I did have a DVD player. I had a DVD player and like a Motorola Razor. And then like
Yeah.
I could go to the library to look for books.
I mean, YouTube 10 years ago isn't what it is nowadays either.
I didn't have internet.
Yeah. So
I
you
mean,
were
hell,
getting
we've
none
only
of it.
had internet a few years out here. But so anyways, I quit. And one day I go into Wellshod because I needed to buy some shoes and some nails. And did y'all have y'all met Burr Vanderwerth that worked there?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I have.
All right, Burr is one of my favorite people in the world. But I go in there and I meet Burr and he's like, "Do you forge?" And I kind of tell him, I've tried a little bit and I can't do it. And he's like, "Well, we've got this shop night, first and third Tuesday of every month. You ought to come in and give it another try." So I do. And the first thing he does, he gives me a horseshoe and he's like, "Make this straight." I'm like, "I can do this. Like, this is something I could do." But I'll say this. I digress. I watched them light their forge. And I'm like, holy shit. Look at that thing go. That was easy and fast and quick. And that is hot. Like, you could do some shit in there. And so
this is getting above a cherry heat here.
Yes. Oh, I was struggling to get a cherry heat. And so I saw that and I was like, all right, obviously I don't have enough air. And I'm picking his brain the whole time. He gives me a horseshoe and he says, "Make it straight." And so I make it straight and I'm pretty proud about how nice and just dead nut straight it is. And he's like, "All right, now make it into a circle." And I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, I just made this straight. Like, I tried real hard. I got this
It was
really
round
straight.
before.
This is really nice.
Yeah.
And so he says, "Turn it into a circle."
Some
and
Karate
so
Kid shit.
Hey guys, do you like that Christmas morning feel of opening up a box, not knowing what's inside, feeling all sorts of excitement to find out what's inside? Well, let me tell you, you can feel that excitement every other month with subscription to Farrier Box. Most farriers want to be competitive, whether it's attracting top-notch clients or winning contests. They take the tools and tricks of the trade used by today's top farriers and ship them to you so you have what you need to take your career to the next level. Go to farrierbox.com to start your subscription and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's box. I repeat, use code BRAINS for 25% off your first order. I know I like receiving packages, but I like it even more when it's a surprise, but also knowing I'm getting cool tools and tricks from Farrier Box. There's nothing out there like it in today's world of farriery, so you might as well go and level up with Farrier Box. Go to www.farrierbox.com and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's order. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, and I flail at trying to make it a circle. Like, I don't know how to use the horn at all. I don't know how to swing a hammer. I don't know how to hold it correctly. And so he gives me some pointers, and I get it into a circle. I get it into a pretty dang nice circle, and then he looks at me. He's like, "Do you want to forge weld this?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Hell yeah." And that's something like forge welding at that point, with all my struggling that I've been doing. I just knew, like, that was black magic that I was never going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so to have that offer the first night that, like, I'm really forging kind of just blew my mind. And so he did one, I did one, and I've still got it. It's up on my wall in my shop. It's one of my most proud things I have. Like, that was where it all started. And so after that, it just kind of went nuts. And Instagram's where I really started learning, like, looking at other people making stuff. And, like, I guess I should go back. I went to that shop night. I went to a couple more. And I was like, I have got to buy some tools. Like, I can't, what I have tried to make is not going to do this.
Yeah.
I've got to actually spend some money. So I ordered a fire pot from, I don't know, somebody. Fire pot, tweer, blower combo, built a forge. Used my shitty anvil. I bought a Jim Blurton hammer and a couple of random pairs of tongs up there. and it was just kind of, I was off to the races and starting to make shit.
What were you like? Were you gonna start doing bits and spurs again, like right away?
No. At that point, I had realized, like, I can't make bits and spurs at this point. I can't make anything.
Got to focus on
Like,
the basics.
I've made a horseshoe straight, and I've turned it into a circle.
Like, I think I'm gonna keep
maybe
making
I
straight
should
circle things.
I think I'm just gonna stick with this for a little bit. Like, I'm gonna make leaves. I'm gonna make tapers. I'm gonna make bottle openers. I'm gonna try the Rubik's twist.
Like everybody's
Just
getting
all the
hoof picks. Like, everybody.
Not only are we making hoof picks, we're making hoof pick bottle openers. Like, those are the fancy ones. And so then I started seeing guys on Instagram making hammers, and I thought, I think I might be able to do that. And at this point, let's see, that was maybe 6 years ago or so.
What was the
5
biggest?
or 6 years
What
ago.
was the biggest thing you had made before then? Like the biggest project?
I made a trivet.
Okay, trivet's a
One
hammer.
trivet. I
Trivet's
quit
a
trying to
hammer.
make tongs. I had made a trivet, but it was a nice trivet. I've got it in the kitchen, but it's like, it's 1/2-inch square stock with 1/2-inch square holes poked in it, and it's kind of woven together. Like it's woven and then riveted ends. Like it's a little more complex than just
Yeah, it was a blacksmith.
something made out of the horseshoes bent around and welded together.
Yeah.
So I started seeing these guys on Instagram making hammers, and I think it was mainly like dudes making Brazil style hammers, but I didn't like that style of hammer. And so I had another guy. We were running a bunch of yearlings out here then, and I built a little guillotine tool, and I had him strike for me, and we made a couple of hammers. And after that, I was pretty well hooked.
Yeah.
So did you make all the tooling that you needed to make the hammer? Besides like the guillotine?
I made a drift. I made an eye punch. I ordered some S7 for the eye punch. Eye punch and the drift. And then that was really about it. Like the guillotine was the only other thing I needed.
Yeah. What style of hammer were you kind of leaning towards that point? You
Just
said like
straight Farrier style.
Yeah. 'Cause that was kind of your. Sorry, I had to plug the computer in. That was kind of your like what you were around forging wise, anyways. At that point, huh? Was a bunch of horseshoers.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah, so I had showed, whenever I'd met Burr and he told me to come to shop night, one thing I didn't realize, that was like their second shop night that they'd ever had whenever I showed up to. So I met Weston there, Clint, and Burr and John. Y'all know Casey Mormon?
No,
I don't.
All right. Well, you know Clint Rogers?
Yep.
He's down there in Weatherford now. But those are kind of the only dudes that were there, and then me. And so I showed up. Burr had said, "Well, bring your forging hammer or something, or your tools that you got." So of course I've got my 5-pound crosspeen because that's all I knew.
5 pound.
Oh, it was mammoth. And I kind of dressed it up a little bit, but that's the only thing that I knew because that's what blacksmiths use.
Yeah, you're like I'm gonna impress these boys.
Big ones.
I got my hammer.
And so Burr immediately was like, put that down.
Yeah, go put that back in the truck, big boy.
Yeah. And I did, and he gave me a different hammer, and I was like, wow, I can actually swing this for more than like 2 or 3 hits.
Yeah. Can somewhat control it.
Yeah, and so I was going for just like a Farrier style rounding hammer.
Okay.
And at that point, I was still shoeing my own horses. And so I figured, like I'm gonna be able to use this myself. And I still I've never hot shoed anything. Like I was just cold banging on a stall jack and
getting by.
I don't know.
Yeah, putting shoes on horses.
Yep.
How long were you building hammers until you decided to sell to the public? How long did it take you to kind of get that process figured out? Until you felt kind of comfortable to put that out there as well.
Initially, and I'm sure Riley's probably the same way. is you kind of start selling to like the local dudes, like the guys at the shop night, some of the local fairies. They're like, I kind of like this. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you're selling them cheap as shit because you don't think they're any good. You don't really know what you're doing. You're not sure if your heat treats it right or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sold a few fairly quick, and then I kind of talked to John, and John was like, you know, you can really sell these. And I was, you know, I was skeptical, but he was like, you got to get you got to be able to do them consistent, and you got to be able to speed it up a little bit. Like, this isn't, you know, a hammer every 4 months isn't going to do it. And so I came across that Little Giant hammer, and I bought it, built tooling for that, and built a pile of hammers just using that Little Giant, and kind of refined my process a bit.
Is that still how you make a lot of your hammers on the Little Giant?
What's that?
Is that still how you make all your hammers is on the Little Giant? Or has your process changed up much?
I don't use the Little Giant for making hammers at all anymore. I use the Anyang 160 78 or 65 78, whatever it is, and the Anyang press. And I actually do more work on the press than I do on the hammer. But if I had to have one tool, I'd still go with a hammer.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would agree. I think people are always surprised when they would think you would do most of it on the power hammer. Or I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I build most of my hammers on the press. Like, most of the work is done there.
Because you need that bit of control. And I mean, you can control a hammer like that, and we've done it.
Yeah.
But it's just not the same. And it's hard to be as consistent on the hammer on something like that as the press.
Yeah, and so I think it's kind of an interesting thing, too, that I want to talk to you about. Is like, me and you both kind of end up doing the same, not the same things, but it's like, we both like to build a bunch of random shit.
Yeah.
But we're both always chasing the perfect rounding hammer.
Yeah.
Where it is like, it's such a, like, it's funny to me because other people probably look at them as like such a simple item. And like, man, me and you, I know, are nitpicking the shit out of each and every single one of them.
You know, how you can't it's a rock on a stick.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do to it to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
There's only so much you can do to make it yours. But those little bits of things that you can do, and you know, there's some of these guys making those kind of Brazil-style hammers, and they all look the same. All of them. Like, there's 40 guys making the same fucking hammer.
I know, I don't have...
Just change something. Change one thing.
Yeah.
Make it your own. And that's all it really takes. But then, you know, you see the old Heller hammers. You see the old champions, the J Sharps.
Yep.
They had such good style. And how do you incorporate that into what you're building now? And then also make it your own. I mean,
it's hard.
It is hard. That's the hardest part. Making it your own is the hardest part.
Yeah, because it's like you said, it's something you can't really reinvent the wheel on a fucking hammer. It's a hammer. It's like, especially like, okay, we break it down to like what farriers want today in a hammer. And I'd be interested to hear your ideas on this too. Is like, to me, they want something that they can beat up their tools with, you know, and it not dimple really. Like, this is their idea of a perfect hammer. I'm not saying any of this is possible.
No, I'm listening.
They're like, it's not going to dimple on them when they hit these tools.
No, that was me settling down to listen.
And then this, they would like for if they missed every once in a while, it wouldn't chip. It would be great if it didn't put dings in their anvil too.
Immediately.
They want a handle that it fits their hand somehow, like right away, immediately, that won't break, that doesn't come loose, and that looks good. So like
you're pretty well spot on. And you're spot on with all, like, they want an impossible hammer.
Oh my gosh, they do so bad.
I mean, that is it. You can't have a hammer that is never going to dent whenever you're hitting hardened S7 or H13. That is also not going to dent your anvil. If you have it that hard, if you do actually catch one on an edge, it's going to shoot a sliver off.
Oh, yeah.
If you hit your anvil, it's going to dent. I mean, it's the one thing I'll say about, I've learned some lessons. Like Jim Keith's taught me some stuff. Jim Poor's told me some things. Like whenever I started doing this and I started selling them, like on the faces of my anvils or hammers, and especially the flat face, I had them crisp, and I mean crisp.
Yep.
And
No.
my thinking was, well, somebody
They
will
wanna
get this, and they'll
turn
tune
and
it up
go.
themselves to get it to what, the kind of radius they want. They're not going to do that.
No, they will not.
You are lucky, and there are some of them out there that will get a handle, and, they got their expander wheel with a new 36 grit belt, and they'll shape a handle how they would like it off if mine's a little big.
They
which
could have
I
Stan
kinda
Mullen
leave a
hands
little
and
bit
want
of
it
extra
big.
room on my handle if somebody wants to whittle some off.
Yeah.
That it's there to do it. Yeah.
Well, no, but like that was
It
a
is.
lesson I learned. So it's like it's a weird thing that like my handle and my personal hammer is fairly big. Like it's a pretty wide handle.
Really?
Yeah, but then like Stan's is bigger around
Oh.
at the neck, like where it comes out of the hammer, than it is
Yep.
in his hand. I was like, man, I wouldn't think that your handle would be this small. He's like, well, you have to think there's so much meat in my hands. There's not really a lot of open space when I close it.
Well, that's anybody's hands, though.
Oh, not. Have you shook Stan's hands?
I have. It's like
They're
shaking a
huge.
hand.
Yeah, it's like there's like an extra inch of padding on the inside, though. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he could take a knife to the hand and it wouldn't get to the bone. Like, oh, he could handshake a blade.
The best you can do is, like, I make the hammer that I like.
Yep.
And I actually run my personal hammers. My handle's more slender than what I sell.
Okay.
But I think if somebody wants to,
Yeah,
whittle on
the
it. Like,
material's
there's
there,
room.
yeah.
Yeah, but so like, what are some of the things that you ran into with the Farrier hammers that you've probably like, have you adjusted a little bit from what you kind of thought should be and compared to like the feedback you're
The
getting back?
radiusing of the flat face is some of it.
Okay.
Another big one is, like, you look at a lot of these machine hammers, like a Jim Poor, an Austin Eden's, a Jim Blurton, a lot of those, the eye is minuscule.
Yeah. It's kind of small.
And so whenever I started out, I thought this is the way it's supposed to be, and they're not going to like it if it's bigger than that because it looks funny. But you got a whole lot more material in there to stay strong if you got a little bit bigger eye than that. And so I started making my eyes a little bit bigger. And then a lot of it is just, Farriers are like raccoons. They like shiny new things.
They
Make
do.
a pretty hammer.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
You
It's
know,
so true.
Put you a fancy wedge in there, make it look good, and they'll at least give it a try because that's something that I learned. Like, a blacksmith is not going to buy, for the most part, some of them will, but a lot of them aren't going to spend $300+ on a hammer.
No.
But guys that are using it every day to make their living, like Farriers, like, if they find one that they like better than another that they can swing all day, they're going to keep buying that hammer. I mean, they're making their living with it.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, Farriers talk about burnout a shit ton. They get burnt out.
Yeah.
And that's something you don't really hear blacksmiths say, that they're like, "Oh, I'm getting burnt out." It's because they aren't really doing it enough. So it's like,
I can get burnt out on making hammers.
yeah, but you're doing those in like batches, like
Yeah.
pretty big chunks.
Yeah, I am. But, John at Wellshaw's been good enough to me that he keeps ordering big orders. And so
No, it's
I got to
great.
do them in batches.
How
Yeah.
big of batches do you usually have to do, like per month, or how
Uh,
often is it?
and it's all dependent on how much time I have with family and day job and everything and how much time I can get in. But, there for a little bit, I was trying to do like a batch would be like 15 or 20 hammers.
Okay.
And I've
Like a
actually
month?
gotten back away from that a little bit and gone back to like batches of 4 or 5. And I need that little bit of success at the end
Yeah.
of getting a batch of 4 or 5 done and just feeling the satisfaction of having that done. Like, getting 20 hammers done feels really good. getting
hard.
5 hammers done feels just slightly less good, but I can feel it more often.
Yeah, you got to feel it 4
Okay.
times
Yep.
compared to this the one time.
Exactly. And
there's-
you know,
that's so
it's helping
good.
me, and that gives me a little time to fuck around with other stuff.
Yep. But it's like there's always a point in every like hammer or tool that you're making that's like you hit that shit point where you're like, is it gonna make it? Is it gonna be good? Like, or is this kind of a
Oh, yeah.
So if you're doing 20 of them, you're hitting that point on 20. You're doing it 20
Yeah,
times. Where you're like,
You know,
there's
but
no hope.
and
There's no hope
sometimes,
in
like,
the world.
I've tooled up enough now, like a lot of it I don't get that, is this going to make it very often? Like, I'd say my hammers are about as consistent as any handmade hammer out there for the quantity that I put out.
No, it's huge.
And that's just making tooling, having everything set just right.
Yep.
Taking the time to make tooling, spending money on equipment, to have everything to where it's repeatable every time. And then the ones that do, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'll throw that one aside. I'll come back to that maybe later. I'm just not even going to mess with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super hard though, huh? Because it's like even though you're going to John's and Welshaw and stuff, there's not really, besides like the Brazils out there and stuff, there's not really like this hammer making school. There you like where you learn how to have all this tooling or like why is this happening right now or like
you got to develop your own stuff, and then you get an idea and you're like, all right, so I keep, here's an issue that I keep having with this every hammer. This is the spot where I have an issue.
Yep.
How can I rectify that? What am I going to have to do? How much time do I have to take to make something to eliminate this issue? And then I'll think about that. I'll be grubbing cedars around the ranch or working on a water line, and I'm thinking about building tooling.
Yeah, I bet that's pretty good. Like, it's a good break from what you were doing to figure it out.
It is.
That's when I usually like figure something out for the shop is when I'm doing something completely freaking different.
Yep.
I'm not even in there.
Yeah.
So I said in the beginning is it's kind of cool. Like you don't fully fall into like one category. I think us Farriers, like we claim you probably pretty good because that's like where you came.
I appreciate that.
It seems like that's where you came from, right? And that we're like one of your biggest markets. I would feel like for your hammers. And
I try to cater to Farriers more than anybody else.
It's like, well, it's cool. Like you've gone to quite a few Farrier events.
Yeah.
Stuff. What's one thing that you've noticed at multiple Farrier events that you're like, why do these guys do this? Earlier you asked me.
That's a tough question.
Me, you're like, you got any questions like that I can think about? And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I got one, but I'm gonna put you on the spot with it.
You know what? I'll tell you a question that I used to have, but now I understand, is the dudes doing contests. The whole contest thing, I was like, why the fuck are you you're gonna spend all day building shoes, and then you're gonna go home and practice making shoes, and then on the weekend, when you have time off, you're gonna make shoes, and then you're gonna spend a shit ton of money to go somewhere else to make shoes, and not a whole lot of people are gonna get any money out of making shoes at those contests. I just thought it was ridiculous.
As someone that does that, I have contemplated it myself.
Yeah.
As somebody who has now competed in a contest, it's just fun.
That's it.
Now I understand that, and I understand the aspect of it from the Farrier, watching. So Weston, like I said, Weston was at like the second shop night that I was at. He didn't know how to build a shoe. And in fact, we were talking, he was like, why the hell are they trying to teach us to build shoes? They sell the damn things.
Yeah. I can see.
And so I've seen him run the gamut of only using keg shoes, but, mainly cold banging, to now, being eat up with the contest deal.
Yeah.
And watching him, if he needs to build a shoe real quick out here for one of my horses, he'll build a shoe and then go on. And I don't think he'd have done that without that whole contest thing. I mean, it is, what's Craig say? The W's education through competition or
Yeah.
I just think it's a really good thing that I sure shit didn't get for a long time.
No, I think that's good. But I was more leaning towards like when they're forging. Like, do you see something that farriers are doing consistently that you're like, man, if you guys would just rethink this a little bit, because you do get it like, and I don't mean like calling them out of like, but it's you've seen also enough blacksmiths and enough other forging that you're like, if you guys could kind of adapt to this a little bit.
I've pretty well been around farriers more than anybody else, and I tend to swing a hammer that way and forge in that same
Yeah, you do.
fashion. I will say, when farriers try to do other things, they try to rush it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say if you're, whenever it comes time to like do some actual blacksmithing, slow down a little bit, and we got a little bit more of a different things going on here. Maybe slow down, but yeah, I mean, really, whenever it comes down to it, I'd say I'm 70% farrier and 25%, or maybe 20% blacksmith and 5% bladesmith.
Would you say just be a little bit more like methodical about it? As far as like slowing down, or just like thinking about it a little bit more? Or
I mean, and this is a pretty broad generalization, because you got guys that you got your Roy Blooms that was
Oh yeah.
world class level farrier,
Mm-hmm.
and he is slow and methodical, and every hit counts, and he'll take the time to do whatever it does to make it look just perfect. And then you got, I'm trying to think of an example. It's like Bodie Trunka did the deal at the Winter Clinic on. Sometimes you just got to go to the vise and just go to file it into submission.
Yeah.
And there's different schools of thought on all of it, but like I said, I tend to kind of operate more like a farrier than a blacksmith on all of it.
No, I think that was a good one. I think that was because I got to stop myself sometimes. Like if I'm working on like a knife or something, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to take this motherfucker to the grinder. I'm just going to hog this off. We're like, all right, rethink, grab the file.
Well, and
chill out.
There's a time and a place for it, and you're not under, blacksmithing shit, you're not generally under a time constraint. Mm-hmm. Take your time. Do it right one time.
Yeah, there's no horse waiting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's good. Where would you like to see your blacksmithing go from here?
I kind of have been toying with the idea of getting into the tong market.
Really?
Tongs?
Yeah, and tongs, funnily enough, whenever I started making tools, tongs are what I wanted to make, and I figured out that for the most part, people don't really want to pay for tongs.
They do not. I love tongs.
It's a funny thing, like if you can't hold it, you can't hit it.
Yep.
But people don't want to pay for the things that hold it.
They don't. I'm with you. I don't get it. It's the one tool that doesn't really wear out.
It doesn't really wear out. It's the one thing you can't do what you're doing without. Like, I can use a Harbor Freight hammer. I can't use a pair of vice grips.
It's the one tool that you're probably going to use all the way through one shoe.
Yep.
You're going to probably switch the hammer. You're going to switch punches, fullers, things like that. But you're going to have this one pair of 3/8 tongs that you make all your shoes with pretty much.
And they're harder to make.
Yeah.
Like, because you're having to make two things that go together and have to function together.
And, like, you could probably, like, a hammer, it could be together and kind of crooked, and you can kind of fuck with it, and no one will ever notice.
No.
They'd never notice.
All my personal hammers are that way.
Yep, mine too.
They're all those rejects, and people will pick them up, and they don't know why they're a reject, but I do.
Yeah, and once you show it to them, they're like, oh, okay, I guess I see it. But it's like, a pair of tongs could look good, but fucking be a pile of crap. Just like,
oh yeah, big time.
Like they don't hold anything. They move like crap. They just
And there's little bitty things in that pair of tongs that can be changed to like you're saying. If you got a shitty pair of tongs, say you buy inward. I've never had a bad pair of Gym-Por tongs. Yeah. So I'm just gonna use this as an example. Say you bought a pair of shitty Gym-Por tongs, and you're like, these just don't hold right. You can size them, you can fix them. Like there's things you can do, but unless you know what you're doing with those pair of tongs, you're probably just not going to do it.
You're
That's
not
where
going to do
someone's
it.
going to give up.
You're not.
Yeah.
Like I almost
Yeah,
guarantee
and so
most
tongs
guys
are a pain in the
have
ass. So
a
I've
fucked up pair. Like
yeah. So I've kind of been toying with the idea of that, but you know, right now I like where I'm at. Honestly, I got a good job. I got a good family, and like I've got a pretty decent balance of keeping family, job, and forging all together in a pretty manageable level. And I just don't feel like I can really add a whole lot to my plate right now.
yeah, no, that makes sense. So what what in tongs are you gonna try to do to make it feasible? Like, because
Tooling.
okay, yeah, goes back to your
Yeah,
tooling.
you know, it took me a long time to come to this realization. I've talked about tooling a bunch, but I hadn't really talked about. It's only been in the last maybe 2 years that I've really figured out. Like anytime I take the time to make tooling, that's money in the bank
It is.
because I can then do anything I'm doing more consistently and more efficiently.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've thought a lot
So
about how
hard.
to make some really good tooling for tongs.
It's hard to take that time away though. To like
Yeah, but how much time do you gain back when you then start doing it?
you do.
Put the
Say
research
it
and
takes
development
you
in.
an hour and a half to make a pair of tongs, but you take, you know, a day to make some tooling that then whips it down to like 35 minutes. How quickly do you get that time back?
Yeah, pretty damn quick. Pretty damn quick. No, tongs are one of those hard things too. Is like there's ways to put hammers into production that are
Yeah.
easier, but like tongs are a hard thing to put into production. Like there's like it's a hard thing
Tongs
to
are a
make
hard thing
tooling
to,
for.
and even with tooling, there is still the margin of error because I'm a person
Yep.
that not every, you know, everything's going to fit just right every time. And so I think you kind of got to do the old Jay Sharp's way of make 100 halves
Yep.
and then just start matching them up, see which ones work the best. And you may have some that you've spent, you know, 25 minutes on that aren't going to work at all. But
Yeah.
you then made a whole lot that are.
It's hard. I think about making tongs and other horseshoeing items sometimes too, and it's like I feel bad because I feel like some people need to keep doing it, right? Some people have to keep making tongs and hammers and stuff like
Carry the
that
tradition.
for our trade. Like keep our
Yeah.
trade alive. Craig used to have that like picture of a dinosaur that says I make shoes to keep my trade alive. And it's like I do feel like that. Like every time after like we went to the winter clinic, I was like, man, I gotta like make some pritchels and some forward punches, some basic horseshoeing items to keep these things alive. But then you also come down to the fact you're like, well, I gotta make fucking money also,
Yeah.
and those things just don't sell that well. Like it's hard.
Well, yeah. And that's like tongs. You got to be able to make them fast and consistent
Yeah,
to make it worth the time to do it.
yeah, you do.
And that's like I've had a lot of people ask me to make driving hammers, and that's something like I've quit making like a cone clipping hammer because there is not one cone clipping hammer. Like that's something that is so personal to each person of what size like cone they or ball, whatever you want to call it, the
Yeah,
peen on it that they want. Like some people loved them, some people hated them, some wanted a bigger peen, some wanted a smaller one. If I changed it at all, once somebody was bitching.
yep.
And that's the same with like a driving hammer. Like it's one of those things that is there's so many good ones out there that I just don't feel like I can really compete with that. And you know, yeah, small amount of people may like them, but it's not worth. I can't make money for that off that small amount of people.
It's hard, but I like making driving hammers because they are like weirdly people are willing to pay for a driving hammer that you put a lot of time into, and because they just like they are super personal. But that's the thing about them is like they're either going to pay a lot of money for and love the thing, or they'll pay a lot of money for and be like, ooh, I don't really like that.
Yeah.
Especially with the weird ones.
See,
I make some long nose motherfuckers that are like kind of weird.
Yeah.
So it's like those long nose ones. Either guys love them or they just like are appalled by them.
See, and all I ever had was like an old Heller driving hammer that like with a square face, and it was entirely too heavy. And so that's all. You know, I got a horse head hammer too, but that's really all I know. And I just don't. I was never enough of a farrier to know what makes a really good driving hammer.
No, but I think
I know that.
Well.
But that you bring up a good point, because you see a lot of blacksmith guys try to make farrier hammers, and they fucking make shitty farrier hammers because they don't know anything about horseshoeing. Where
I'll say the first thing about all the blacksmiths that make farrier rounding hammers is the handles are too big.
Handles
and too short.
Too short.
Yeah.
And the hammers are a little too short and chunky themselves. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
It is something, there's like a refinement to the horseshoeing hammers. They're just longer and skinnier. Like,
well, and I think that's kind of where I got a benefit over the other blacksmiths is that I have pretty well, you know, done all my blacksmithing around farriers.
Yeah.
You know, that's who I've learned from. And I watch I will watch somebody swing a hammer. I'll watch them swing my hammer and see how far down on the handle are they holding it? How much are they choking up? You know, how's the hammer holding up on a punch? I mean, I like to talk to people about how they're doing or what they like and don't like. And, you know, I think I like to think that shows in what I make.
Oh, I think it does, man. Like, I think that's one of the things too about your tools is that they're all finished to a high quality.
That was the first thing I noticed when I first saw them. I was like, damn, these are pretty freaking nice.
Well, that goes back
Straight off the
to
lot.
you guys being raccoons.
Exactly.
Shiny things.
Yeah.
You're like bass and a spinning lure.
Yeah, it's so
Give it to
freaking
me.
true, man. Look how we.
And I'm not trying to say that bad. I mean, it is what it is. And I'm the same way. Hell, I started selling hammers so I could buy other people's hammers.
I know lots of other horseshoers out there that love shiny new tools, so you're
Yep.
spot on with it. You know.
Yep.
Spot on.
It's always a funny thing though too, is like because both of us are a little bit in both worlds, like of the blacksmith and the farrier world, and you'll make something like kind of forged to finish, and all the blacksmiths are like, "Oh yeah, that looks amazing." And horseshoers are like, "Are you gonna actually finish it, or like is this it? Like, is that done?"
Yeah. I see some hammer marks there. Is that from your flatter right there?
Yeah, exactly. That's like I always try telling those blacksmiths, like, I come from flat and clean. That's my world, is flat and clean. Yeah. Like, that's all we know.
Well, that's how I like I said, that's something that goes back to like learning from farriers. Like that is, I don't want scale. I want clean, smooth metal as much as possible. I don't want that Ford scale look. I want it flat and as clean as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like hell whenever I think I'm going to try to do the Roadrunner Classic there at Craig's again this year.
Nice.
But that's something that I struggle with on that whole thing is I'm not a fast enough guy building horseshoes to like it bothers me that I can't make what I'd like to be able to make. And I'm not good enough and I'm not fast enough, and it just seeing that scale and shit on there drives me nuts.
So are you going to try and do like the categories or in the novice?
Oh, I'm doing novice again. I think I got 2 more goes at novice, and I'm going to do one this year and probably one next year. And I'd like to be able to do them in the same year, but I just life.
Oh yeah,
can't get it done.
Yeah. No, it's cool that you go at all. Like it's a hard thing. It's hard. And like at home in the shop, if you're middle of the project and you're not happy with it, you can restart.
Yeah. Or you can take the time to sit there and tune on it until you are happy with it.
Yep, and you can't fucking do that in the middle of a go.
And I learned more building shoes last year than I think I learned in like the first 4 years about like, how to, more than anything else, how to use my tongs and how to use the anvil.
And okay, I think those are good. Like, do you have some like the highlights from that? Do you like some details there?
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of them. Like let's say cracking a toe on the anvil,
Yep.
and like your tongue placement, and not tongue placement necessarily, just like where it that encompasses where it is on a piece of bar stock, where it's going to bend,
Yep.
how much leverage you have,
Where they're pointing.
depending on where you're
And
you're holding it.
Where they're pointing.
Yeah, I mean, just all of it. And I just never would have guessed, and it makes you so much more efficient in everything else, thinking in those terms. Uh, making things round, making things flat, opening things up, closing them up, all on the horn is. It's just using it's getting more out of my anvil than I ever have before.
No, I think those are good ones. Yeah, because it's something that I noticed. Like you go to a blacksmith event compared to like a farrier event, and some of it is like the lower category like farriers and stuff like that, and maybe not so much. But like you watch a farrier that's really good, like they're very good at the horn.
And that's it.
Like they understand.
I feel like being able to use your horn efficiently, being able to use your horn efficiently is kind of a make or break thing. Like, yeah, you can bump some material and you can flatten stuff, you can punch nail holes, but essentially all your shape comes on the horn. And I just had no idea that that's how it was. And I basically, like every other blacksmith, didn't use the horn hardly at all unless I was doing like a bottle opener.
Yeah.
And it really was an eye opener. And it's things like you can use that in knife making. Like if you want to bend your blade a certain way, you then know where to hold your knife blade and have the blade on the horn to bend in a certain direction.
Not fuck something else up.
And not fuck something up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny.
A lot of times.
I was just talking about that to Chelsea of like, I was talking about like, I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing when I'm forging a knife. I'm just kind of like guessing, and
same here.
Like, I heard Shane Carter say one time, because all those knife makers will say like, oh, you put the point all the way on one side and you bevel the knife and then the point will go back to the other end. And Shane Carter is like, yeah, I guess you could do that, but I'm a farrier and I'm not afraid to bend or unbend some metal. So I'm just going to let it go where the fuck it wants and I'll straighten it later.
That's the way I operate too.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
They do that like pre-bend and then they like straighten it out. And I do a little bit of that, but if it bends too much, I can bend it back without screwing up the rest of it.
Yep. No,
I can learn something from anybody. I can learn something from blacksmiths or silversmiths. I mean,
yeah. That's good.
You got to take the education where you can get it, and you can then keep it in your back pocket till you need it.
And it comes out on projects that you wouldn't think it'd come out on.
Yeah.
So something you were saying is that like you're pretty good at keeping. I think you are. I love following you on social media of everything that you're doing throughout your day, because it's always just like you never know what you're going to be doing. But I think you keep a good balance in your life. It seems like it. How do you try to go about that of keeping a good balance in your life?
Family, work, blacksmithing is my family comes first, and then my job, because that provides me with a place to live, insurance, a place to work, do my blacksmithing. I mean, I'm lucky enough that they let me set up shop on the ranch. So I got to keep the boss happy. And then, as the kids are getting a little bit older, like time in the shop is sort of dwindling, which is a little bit hard to deal with because like Pinecone, we're an hour from Amarillo. She goes to gymnastics twice a week, and Alex will take the Comanche with her on Mondays, and then I keep him with me on Wednesdays. And so, that kind of limits the other nights that we have together to kind of hang out and have dinner and everything, because we try to have dinner as a family every night.
Oh, no.
And I at least like to have
a little slow.
What's that?
We lost.
You might have to say that again. We lost you.
Yeah, we lost you first.
Where'd you lose me at?
You had the Comanche on Wednesdays.
Okay, yeah. I have the Comanche on Wednesdays while the girls go to Amarillo and go to gymnastics. And so that limits kind of our family time. We like to have dinner at the dinner table as a family every night. And so it kind of starts limiting that. So I don't want to be at the shop and miss, have to miss dinner with them instead of having family dinner. And I guess I try to put those two first. And if the blacksmithing gets less time, then I'll deal with that, because I don't rely. I like that income, but I'm not relying on it.
No, and it's probably just a good, even besides income, it's just a good something you enjoy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a
well. That's kind of something that goes back to the whole contest shoeing deal. Is I started doing that because I had that Coke Forge that I hadn't fired it up in like a year and a half, and I thought, this kind of burn out on hammers. I want to do some other stuff.
Yeah.
And started doing that, and like it just kind of brought some joy back into it, to where I can build some shoes ever so often, and then build hammers whenever, most of the time, and keep it enjoyable.
No, yeah, it does.
Changing it up a little bit.
It's funny too, is like, because I'll go through bits where I'm making some tools, and then I'll go and make a bunch of horseshoes, and then I'm pretty pumped to go make some tools again, because I'm like, oh, I want to try this.
Yeah.
I want to try this on a hammer, or I want to try this on a punch. I think it'll be sweet for like this spot in the horseshoe. I think it'll make this a little bit easier, this a little bit easier.
Well, like I said, I do it. I'm out here by myself all day until they get home from school, because Alex teaches and the kids are in school now, and so I've got a lot of time to think about what I want to make.
Yeah.
I've got all day to just think about tooling, or think about a different process for a hammer or a pair of tongs or whatever. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but, generally it's worth exploring.
No, I think it's cool, man. You can see it in your tools and in your projects that you make. Like, you can tell that you thought about every little spot of it, or tried to, like, you can kind of see where it was going,
that.
Like, it's one of my favorite things, and it's, you always, like, there was that spout of our Instagram reels, everybody had reels, and like, you always have so much fun, like, they're fun to watch, you have like so much.
Well, I try. Hell, I was basically just trying to copy what you were doing to hope I would get a whole shit ton of followers. I got some, but as I've told you, like, I'm happy for your success on the whole Instagram deal, because you do blacksmiths and farriers proud. Like, you bring new people. Like, you doing well brings everybody else up. Brings the whole craft into the spotlight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a good thing for everyone.
It's funny, man. Like, social media is such a funny thing of like it's still like, you can have a bunch of followers on there, but I probably only like care about so many people if they like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like really, that's all. Like, if you comment like this was cool, it's like, all right, yeah, we topped her up a little bit. It's like, or you can have like a fucking 50 other people could tell me it's cool too, but you're like, you're aiming for these certain ones. You're like,
but like, I mean, you're kind of the poster child for everybody now, and that's good, because you're a good one for it, because you do like really good work. And you're a good person and a good personality, instead of being, somebody who just does good work and is an asshole or whatever.
Yeah, it's because you haven't had to be on a horseshoe.
It's a good look.
The asshole thing turns a little bit if you're on my team.
Well, the whole social media thing can just turn into a fucking job too. That gets exhausting.
It's work. Yeah.
It is work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because all three of us right here like try to make a presence on social media.
Yeah, and then like you got to come up with something new. And how many? Like, most of the time I'm making hammers. How many different processes of a hammer can I show in different ways? Not very many.
Same as shoeing a horse, right?
Yeah,
yep.
It's hard too, because you're like, if I don't find it interesting, it's hard for me to imagine somebody else finds it interesting.
That's exactly it. Is like, I don't want to, and I find myself doing a little bit of it, but like, you don't want to just be clickbait. Like, I'd like to show something that somebody might could get a benefit out of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always try to put like some little tip in there that the guys that know what they're watching are gonna be like, all right, that was fucking cool. Like, that was the
exactly
move right there. No, I'm with you, but
sometimes I just feel like I need to put something up, and so I just put anything up.
And those are always the things that do good.
Damn right.
They always
Damn
are.
right.
You're like, man, this is boring and just gonna fill a space. Like I haven't posted in 2 days.
Yep.
I gotta put some bullshit on here, and then all of a sudden people are
No,
like,
you're-
oh my
you're
god,
dead
it's amazing. Like, oh, that always
It's a weird
Yep.
world.
Yeah, it blows my mind when it's like the stupidest thing that I'm like, I
you
barely
gotta
even
think
wanted
about
to
it.
post it,
On-
even when it was done.
You got to think about it though. For the most part, you're catering to the lowest common denominator. You're trying to catch somebody's attention for 5 seconds.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
And so, whenever you do like a minute and a half reel, showing as much of a process as you can,
Yep.
which is essentially nothing.
So hard.
It's so hard, but I mean, you're still trying to only catch those people for
Yep.
5 seconds.
Yeah, to keep them entertained.
That's what I saw. I saw like a statistic that is like reels are decided if they're good or not within the first 3 seconds
Yeah.
in someone's
what I've
head.
heard as well.
That they're like, it's that quick that they're like, shit.
No, and they
shit or
can
not
like
shit.
it's a view if it's 3 seconds. Like that 3 seconds is like if you got a minute and a half video, 3 seconds is all it takes for it to be a view, and
I've
then
always
they can
wondered
scroll
that.
on.
I've always wondered,
Yep.
like, how
Yeah, me
long
too, really.
somebody has to stop on your reel before they scroll. Okay, that
I
makes
think
sense.
I'm pretty sure
I
it's
bet you're
3
right.
seconds.
I bet you're right. That makes sense.
So
Well, Ben, a question that we like to ask everybody is who would be, we call it a Mount Rushmore. So basically 4 people that you hold in high regard or respect or look up to throughout your life or your career.
all right, I'm gonna stick with forging on this, but I'm gonna be all over the place.
Perfect.
That's fine.
I'm gonna go with Josh Prince Knives. He
Yeah,
is
Prince
in,
Works.
I want to say Baltimore. Yeah, Prince
That's a-
Forge Works.
That's a good one.
And
That's
he
one
makes
that a
some
lot of
just
other-
oddball.
A lot of horseshoers probably don't know who the fuck Josh Prince is.
I don't.
No, and he builds these oddball, like beautiful oddball Damascus, and some of it I like. Actually, majority of it I like. Some of it I'm not real like. I don't necessarily like, but I like that he can do it.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
let's see. I'm gonna say Craig Trunka because I like what he does for y'all's industry.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw myself in there. Our industry.
Yeah. Yo, you're in it, man. We
I
claim-
like what
yeah.
he
we
does for
claim you,
everybody.
so.
And
Hell yeah.
I like him as a person. Let's see here. Y'all know who John Rigoni is?
Yep. I do. Yeah.
He's a blacksmith down in Houston. He's also a fireman, but I think he is the king of tooling.
Yep.
Like he makes tools for everything, and they always look good and turn out a beautiful product. And let's see. I'll get out of the blacksmithing deal. I'm gonna go back with my old man Bill Snure Maker on Instagram, just because he's always supported me so well. Been a good dad, good role model as a father. He's just a good person.
And he's handy. I've seen some of your
And he's
dad's.
handier than shit.
Your dad's engraving work is slick. Like
He can engrave, he can tool leather, he can work
Is
on a
that where
pickup, mountain bikes, he does it all.
Have you learned to do like engraving from him, or like some of the tools you've had engraved? Does he do that?
He does the engraving. I cannot draw a stick figure. And if
I'm
you
not good at
can't
it
draw,
either.
you can't engrave.
yeah, exactly.
And apparently that is a skill that can be learned, but I have not been able to learn it.
I've wondered that because I've seen some of your hammers that are engraved, and I'm like, those are pretty fucking sick.
Yeah, I don't do that. He and I team up on those, and I always try to give him, I'm pretty sure I always give him credit because, yeah, I can't do that. I'd like to be able to, but I don't think that's within my skill set.
No, it's
Yeah.
it's something that
Interesting
I
about
love that he's made, but I could never pull them off. Is the engraved Ray-Bans? They're like,
Oh,
those
shit,
are
yeah.
badass, but I don't think I could ever be cool enough to actually wear them. It's like
Ah,
they
yeah,
are
check
cool
them
as
out.
shit, though.
They're badass.
That's a good
check 'em
that's
out.
a good Mount Rushmore that people should go check all those people out. Like that is obviously everyone knows who Craig is, but man, your dad, Josh Prince, and John Rigoni are very high end makers that are doing cool creative things. That's a good list, Ben.
Well, I appreciate it. I actually put some. I knew that one was coming. I put some thought into it.
That was good. That was original. I mean, besides Craig, I think Craig's been on every single person's list on both.
All right, I'll come up with some. I'll come up with somebody other than Craig. Then. Screw that guy, lanky bastard. Fuck him.
Well, fuck, man. I appreciate it very much. It's you staying up late with us at your house before you gotta go tend the ranch.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, you
be
bet.
with your family, man. I look up to your work. I appreciate your friendship.
Well, that's saying a lot. I appreciate it.
I'm glad that people could hear some stuff about you. So,
well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Well, maybe we'll see you there in Edgewood.
Mighty good.
Perfect. Appreciate it,
Sounds
everybody.
good.
Thank you.